Hello and welcome to Murphy's Garden. And one of the questions I probably get asked most about on this channel is what are these trees and do they take much care and looking after? So I thought, although I have featured them in other videos, I thought they did deserve a video all of their own. So we're going to look at the care of Prunus Lusitanica. When I was quite new to gardening and planning this garden, I saw these trees featured quite a lot in garden magazines and things, and also when we visited Woollerton Old Hall for the very first time, I saw these trees and absolutely loved the evergreen structure that they brought to the garden. So I made a point of finding out what they were, and we sourced them, and that's when we planted these trees here, and they've been great trees. But planting any new tree can be a little bit daunting, and it's really important to do lots of research and find out whether that tree is right for you. So if you're thinking of planting Prunus Lusitanica, watch this video and hopefully that will help you make the decision. And we are in the process of choosing some new trees for another part of our garden, and this has been going on for sort of 2-3 years worth of research that's gone into it, and I think we keep changing our mind, but we think we've now got a finite list, and we're going to be getting those trees in the next few weeks, I hope, and planting them. So we'll do a little video on each of the trees as we plant them. So if you want more tree inspiration, keep watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we do here on Murphy's Garden. But for now, let's have a look at these trees in more detail. Their common name is Portuguese Laurel, as they are native to Portugal, Spain and Western France. You may also know them as Portugal Laurel, Cherry Bay or Evergreen Laurel, but the botanical name is Prunus Lusitanica. The variety that we have is Prunus Lusitanica angustifolia. It is exactly the same in terms of growing conditions as the standard Prunus Lusitanica, except that the leaves are narrower and it has a denser growth habit, so it's probably best for growing into this mushroom shape as we have it here. I did do a video on my 10 best evergreen trees for adding year-round structure to the garden, and these were number 1 on my list, but I thought they deserved their very own video due to all the interest that they've had, and I also wanted to show you what is involved when it comes to their care. A week ago, Al gave them their annual prune, but we are very late cutting them this year. Prunus Lusitanica is in pruning group 8, which means prune in late spring. However, as it is a flowering evergreen, then the books advise pruning after flowering. They tend to flower in early summer, so usually around June, but this year flowering seemed to be later, and they were still flowering at the end of June and even into July. Here are some that we saw at Belton House in full flower in the middle of June. Normally we prune them back from July onwards, but this year we've been time poor and we've had lots of wet weekends, so somehow we find ourselves in October and the job still wasn't done. It's a bit risky cutting so late in the season in case of an early cold winter, but we didn't want to miss a year as they'll get so big, and in view of the fact that autumn seemed to be getting longer and the long-term forecast is for mild wet weather, we decided to go for it. Don't really advocate it, it is a little bit risky, so we'll try not to make that mistake again. It's also meant, cutting later has meant that we have got to enjoy the berries that appear after flowering, and so have the birds. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it won't turn too cold in the next few weeks, and that will give time for any new growth to harden off before the worst of the winter weather. Prunus Lusitanica are often used in big estates to create evergreen structure and punctuate entrances, and we've seen them at various gardens that we've visited. We've also seen them growing in different ways. At Erddig, we saw them growing in big wooden baseless pots around them, but they were really planted in the ground to give the impression that they were growing in a container. This is a better long-term solution than actually planting them in the wooden containers, because if the wood rots, it can simply be replaced without damaging the tree. We also saw them growing at Belton House in their very formal grounds, and we've also seen them growing as hedges at Attingham Gardens, also at Erddig. They can, of course, be left to grow naturally, or they can be clipped and kept to a desired size. They can be a little bit thuggish, so really it's a good idea to keep them under control in the way you want them, the size that you want them. Our garden is quite formal and the area that they're growing in is quite restricted, so for us it's really important to keep them under control and restrict their size, and also keep them at a manageable height. So while we watch Alistair tackle the job in hand, I will just tell you a little bit about the trees, and also we'll look at some of the growing conditions as well. So these trees were planted, we've got 4 of them in the sunken garden, and they were planted in December 2013, so they've been in now 10 years, so they're probably about 15 years old in total. You can see the size they were when we planted them, and after about 5 years they filled out quite nicely. Initially we planted a row of box balls beneath them, but that made it hard to cut the grass, so we removed those, and we also planted tulips under them, but as the roots filled out this became impractical too. We cut out squares and planted the trees in the middle, but over time the squares became wonky, losing their impact, and I was forever weeding underneath the trees. So this summer Alistair put in edging stones and added weed membrane, which he topped with a slate mulch. This has been really successful and also stops them suckering. They have got a tendency to sucker, so that stops that, and it also locks in moisture and reduces weeds and makes the maintenance much easier. As you will have seen on previous videos, Al uses his steel combi with long reach hedge cutter attachment. He's also got just a standard hedge cutter, a platform ladder, and he advocates using this super clean spray, which I think we've shown you in the past. This is really good as it helps lubricate the blades and also reduces the buildup of resin on the blades, and it has no adverse reaction on the vegetation. He also has a tripod ladder, which makes the job easier and a bit safer, but a normal ladder will do. And he also puts down tarp just around the trees, just to make it easier for clearing up afterwards, which he holds down with some bricks. And he's got a dumpy bag at hand, or a builder's bag, and he's got various rakes just to make the job nice and quick, and a trolley just to transport all the material to the compost heap. And not to forget, very importantly, a flask of coffee and a bag of crisps for refueling, of course. So to begin with, Al starts with the tree that's got the most vigorous growth. So this is the one nearest on the left. The ones nearer to the cherry tree are not nearly so vigorous. So start with the one that needs most taken off it, and then prune the others to match that one. Prunus Lusitanica angustifolia is a good choice for year-round structure and makes a fine specimen tree, but Prunus Lusitanica is also widely used for hedging. It's prettier than common laurel, and it has these lovely red stems and narrower, dark, glossy, ovate green leaves, but it is just as durable. If left to grow naturally, it can grow to 8 to 12 metres in 20 to 50 years with a spread of 8 metres, but it can be pruned to keep it to a more desirable, smaller size, and will remain small with a good rounded habit. It can be pruned into various shapes, from pyramids to domes, but they look particularly good when pruned into an umbrella shape, as we have done here. The small, fragrant, white flowers in racemes of 25 centimetres in length appear in late spring and look light and contrast well with the dark green leaves. These are then followed by dark purple berries, which are loved by the birds. And being evergreen, this tree or hedge will look attractive and provide interest and shelter for the birds all year round. It's quite an unfussy plant and is easy to grow in any moist but well-drained, moderately fertile soil, but it can even thrive on poor, shallow, chalky soils. It is quite shallow rooted, so keep it well watered until it is established. Once established, it is quite drought resistant. It is not an invasive tree, but it can sucker. Make sure when you're planting it that you do provide it with enough space to grow. As a guide, if you're growing it as a tree, our trees are approximately 15 years old and are 6 foot or 1.8 metres at their widest part, and 7.5 foot or 2.3 metres in height. Due to their shallow roots, avoid planting near buildings or structures where roots could cause damage, but regular pruning will curtail root growth too. It will grow in any aspect, north, south, east or west facing, and can grow in full sun or partial shade. We saw a hedge at Earthay growing either side of a path. One side was thriving in light shade, but the other was in dry shade under a very large yew tree, and it was really struggling, so avoid heavy dry shade if possible. As I said, it's pruning group 8, so prune to the desired shape in late spring or early summer, but as I said, we are very late doing ours. The leaves and fruit contain toxic compounds and should not be ingested by humans or pets. It is advisable to wear gloves and wash hands after handling. It's hardy H5, USDA hardiness 6 through 9. If you do decide you would like to grow Prunus Lusitanica, then container grown plants can be purchased at any time of the year, but try and avoid planting into frozen ground. It is cheaper to buy bare rooted plants, and these can be purchased and planted from November to March when plants are dormant, but again avoid frozen ground. If planting as a hedge, plant at least 60 centimetres apart in a single row to allow room for growth. Planting too close will mean that the roots will encroach on each other and result in less healthy plants. It is a fast-growing hedge and can reach between 1 to 2 feet in the first year, and in 10 years can grow up to 20 feet. So left unchecked, it can become a very imposing hedge if allowed to get out of control. Before planting, prepare the soil by adding organic matter such as compost or well-rotted manure to improve fertility and drainage if required. But if your soil is good, then this isn't always necessary. You'll see here from our photographs that we dug very big holes because our soil was very, very poor and there was a lot of concrete in this area. So we dug very big holes and filled them with lots of new soil. Keep your new plants well watered during dry spells in the first year, but avoid waterlogging. They don't like to be sitting in permanently soggy soil. So I hope you find that helpful and made you more able to make a decision as to whether this is the right tree for your garden. And incidentally, the job of pruning them took Alistair about 6 hours from start to finish. So that included getting all his stuff together, but it's about an hour and a half per tree, which I suppose, if you think of it in the great context of a year and all the joy and pleasure that they bring, isn't a lot of time. You think how long it takes to cut grass every week. They don't require a lot of work and they do bring a lot of pleasure. So hope you find that helpful. Thank you very much for watching, and join us again in the next video. Bye for now.